3, 2, 1.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, theys, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. Hope you're all having a great night, weekend, day, whenever you're listening to this. Got another review here in the Real Spooky series, which I'm so excited to finally start getting out to y'all. Got a review for The Black Phone, which is directed by Scott Derrickson, who, of course, you know from directing the first Doctor Strange, produced Sinister, directed Deliver Us from Evil, Sinister 2, obviously. Oh yeah, he was a producer on the Snowpiercer TV show. That's right, I forgot about that. And then is written by him and C. Robert Cargill. If you're a film nerd like me, you probably listened to Spill.com back in the day. He was, of course, a critic on there. Was a writer on Doctor Strange, a writer for Sinister 1 and 2. So, okay, I'm going to get this out of the way because it's my man's birthday today when I'm recording this. I know he'd want to give me shit for it, so I'll take my medicine. So I gotta shout out Nick over at the Afternoon Tune. You can check them out wherever you listen to podcasts. The Afternoon Tune is a great podcast. Nick had been telling me, Hunter, you gotta watch The Black Phone and you have to watch X. And so our review for X will be up here before the end of the month. Spoiler, I really enjoyed it. He'd been telling me to watch both of these movies. I was like, dude, I'll get to him. I'll get to him for the Halloween series. Like, I'll get to him. And, yeah, he's 2 for 2, because son of a bitch, The Black Phone kicks so much ass. And see, Nick, you were right there. You happy? Damn it. But, yeah, this movie kicks so much ass, and I'm so happy I got a chance to watch this. This is streaming on Peacock right now, by the way. So if you haven't seen The Black Phone, pause this review real quick. Go watch it, then come back, because The Black Phone kicks so much ass. So, full spoilers on this, because it has been out for a little while. So if you haven't seen it, seriously, pause this review, go, pause this, watch it, come back. The movie goes ahead and takes place in Denver in 1978, and we follow Finney, who's played by Mason Thames, is what I'm going to go with. So, I was looking through his filmography, couple TV show appearances, stuff like that. But this is really his first big role. And I gotta say, this kid's amazing. And I'll get to his story here in just a moment. But Finney is this kid who's going to school with his sister, played by Madeline McGraw, who plays Gwen. And I'll get to her in a second. She's been in a few things, like she was an Outcast. She was on Bones. She was in American Sniper, which I actually do remember her being pretty good in. Here's what's interesting about the two of them. Anytime you do a movie with kids, there's always that chance that the kids just aren't very good. I enjoy the first Harry Potter, but admittedly, there is some rough acting in that first one. But again, they're kids, you know, they're still learning shit. To go ahead and get 2 powerhouse performances from kid actors, it's just awesome. And I will say, I like Gwen a little bit more than I like Finney. By the end of the movie, I went, okay, I'm really happy that for the journey that Finney went on. But he's going to school. Their dad, played by Jeremy Davies, Terrence, who, of course, you know from Saving Private Ryan, Secretary, Twister, Solaris. I know him as Dickie Bennett from Justified. I was actually really excited when I saw him pop up. I was like, oh shit, yeah, let's go. He is trying to raise his 2 kids by himself. They lost their mom. Okay, so let me just kind of get into, I don't even want to say a complaint. The whole thing they do with Gwen, as far as her basically having to shine, I did just kind of think, alright. So there's 2 things about the movie that kind of irk me, but I'll get to that in a second. But basically, Finney's walking home from school one day, gets caught by the grabber, who's played, of course, by the brilliant Ethan Hawke. You know Ethan Hawke from Before Sunrise, Training Day, Before Midnight, Before Sunset, Saving Private Ryan, not Saving Private Ryan, what the hell am I talking about? The Northman, you know him from First Reformed. That's what I was trying to say, not say Brett Wright. But Ethan Hawke is amazing in this. And we don't get to see Ethan Hawke play a villain too often. He was just in Moon Knight, and I thought he was amazing in that as well. But I'm really liking this Ethan Hawke playing a villain because the Grabber, first off, the mask that he has, it's fucking creepy. And the way that it's kind of like a puzzle, and he's able to form different expressions from it. That's something I didn't see a lot of people bring up in reviews, and I think that's insane because I think that's one of the creepiest but subtle things into how his psyche works. I love the way that he did that. And there's a couple points in the film where he does in prominent moments, and I went, oh, I love how creepy that is. But before I get into the abduction, let me jump back a little bit. So one thing I love about this movie is how terrible of a dad Terrence is to Finney and Gwen. And I love that because he's clearly hurting from losing his wife. We find out later on in the film kind of what happened and how that ties to Gwen. Terrence he's flat out abusing these kids, whether it's emotionally abusing them or at points physically abusing them. There's a point where Gwen has a run-in with the cops, and this run-in she has with the cops, first off, is amazing because she has a fucking mouth on her, but then when you kind of meet Terrence, you go, oh, okay, yeah, I get where she would get her mouth from. She calls them dumb fucking fart knockers. That's what it was, and that line in particular killed me. But she's this little smartass, but she's very tough. And for where her character goes, you do find out like, oh, okay, it explains why you kind of have to be this tough. But there's a point where Terrence is straight up abusing her. It's uncomfortable to watch, but in the way that it's realistic. And I think that might be a turnoff for some people, because I do know people just don't like to see kids in peril. I know a lot of people who were very kind of squirmish on Dr. Sleep because of that. There is a lot of violence in here in a way that I went, this does feel real, and that might make people uncomfortable. Miguel, I'm going to butcher this, sorry. Miguel Savarez Mora, who plays Robin. I haven't seen them in anything. Looks like this is their debut. This is their only IMDb credit, so son of a bitch. Miguel's amazing in this, and he's this kid who befriends Finney. Finney, you find out, helps him out with his math homework, and so Robin kind of gives him some protection. And there's this point where this kid, I can't remember the kid's name, but he calls Robin like a beaner. And I remember just going, wow, okay, the fuck? Scrawny little beaner. That's what he calls him. Moose is a kid's name. Moose is one of the bullies at the school. So he calls him scrawny little beaner, and Robin whips his ass like it was his job. I was laughing so hard because this is a perfect case of he fucked around and found out. Because Moose thinks that he's just gonna wipe the floor of Robin, and Robin beats him damn near to death. Like it gets pretty uncomfortable, but this kid fucked around and found out. And there's this really cool scene in the bathroom where Finney's about to get beat down, and Robin steps in and basically says, you fuck with him again, I'm gonna fuck all of you up. And then there's this really cool conversation about them just being kids, and how Robin at a point goes, you're gonna have to stand up for yourself someday. And without getting too much, I know I was saying spoilers, but I'm gonna try to dance around some things a little bit here, but the way those words echo at the end of the film was something I went, oh, I love that. Finney ends up getting kidnapped by the Grabber, and then it's this really cool game of cat and mouse, because there are points where the Grabber seems kind of, I don't want to say cool, but as cool as he could be given the terrible situation and peril he's in. So there's some points where he seems kind of cool. He's like feeding the kid or whatever. But Finney, rightfully so, is like, yeah, I don't trust you. And so he's giving him as little as humanly possible. And it's this great back and forth that I just found incredibly captivating. It was keeping me on my toes. I was definitely tapping my fingers on my desk, sitting there going, okay, I don't like this. I don't like how tense this is. There is a point where Finney escapes, and that whole sequence in particular leading to him escaping is so incredibly tense and so just Oh, that scene in particular is something that made my skin crawl in the best way. But I mentioned earlier in the film, earlier in the review, that Gwen has, The Shining, basically. And so there's this scene where Terrence, her dad, and her having this conversation about her mom. Again, while it is completely inexcusable for how abusive he's being, he's basically drinking himself to sleep on Friday nights too. We see at multiple points that Finney's like picking up the beer bottles, and Gwen goes and stays the night at her friend's house on Fridays because that's Terrence's apparent designated time to just be a drunk asshole. And so there is this point where Gwen very cautiously is talking to him and goes, look, I'm having these dreams, I'm having these thoughts. And the way that Terrence breaks down what happened with her mom, and the way that you just see what a broken man he is, that who hasn't been able to get over it, it's really quite tragic. And it's interesting how the family is all dealing with that pain in particular and manifesting it in different ways. But Gwen has a literal physical manifestation of it. It's really interesting, and it's something that I don't think the film needs to be too much longer, but if there's a little more of that, if you could have given me another 5 minutes of that would have been kind of nice. But the big hook of this movie is Finney is trapped with by Ethan Hawke. Can he get out? Can Gwen help save him? And the way that Gwen's visions work, the way The Shine works in this movie, and that is what it is. But the way that works with the black phone in the room that Finney's being kept in, the gimmick of that being that he's able to talk to the kids who've died in the past because of the grabber. It's a really interesting hook. It's just something they never really explain. And I know that might be being a little nitpicky for people. That's fine. I would have liked something about the house being mad. Like, I don't know. Like, I think you could throw something in there, but they never really touch on that. And they never really touch on the Shining aspect. They let you know that Gwen's mom had it. I wish it would have just taken that extra step and been like, it's something that's been in her family. But just to have two women kind of just randomly have it, I went, all right. Like, I just wish it would have explained it a little more. But outside of that, really, those are my only complaints really about the film. I think this is a brilliantly paced film. Once the film lays the groundwork, and it lays the groundwork pretty early on, just from the opening credits, where you see that these other kids have disappeared. It's cut in this very, not like this like Dateline, Unsolved Mysteries sort of vibe to it. It's very cool the way it's done, and it really does set the tone for the film at large, and I really enjoyed how they do that. Those are really my only complaints about the movie. I think the pacing of this movie is incredible. The acting is aces across the board. Madeline McGraw gives me Haley Steinfeld True Grit vibes, or Ellie Fisher in 8th grade. You feel like you're seeing a star being born when you watch this performance. It was something that I was captivated by the whole time, and she has to portray this amount of vulnerability from losing her brother and trying to help find him, but realizing the weight of letting these things in and how that's mentally affecting her, to being this scared girl who just, is afraid her dad's gonna hit her, as soon as he turns a corner, versus being this this incredible smartass with incredibly wicked tongue who's able to just talk down anyone, whether they're a kid and an adult. There's this point where Finney is getting beaten down by these bullies, and Gwen comes in with a fucking rock and decks the shit out of this one dude. I was so impressed. I actually had to pause the movie and clap because she decks this kid. And this kid fucking deserved it, but she's tough as shit. So gold star. Finney, I love the hero's journey we go on with him, because he's this very timid, scared boy, and through this incredibly traumatic experience, he grows up and he learns to have more confidence in himself. And the last 20 minutes of this movie are it's one of the best payoffs I've seen in a film in a couple years. I love the last 20 minutes of this movie. Holy shit, I love the last 20 minutes of this movie. It's such an amazing payoff, and it's something I'm going to end up going back and rewatching this. I actually have gone back and rewatched the last 20 minutes already today. I adore the ending of this movie, and the journey to get there is so cool. The way that Finney's talking to certain kids on the phone when the phone does ring. And one thing I appreciate too, they actually drag the phone out. You see the phone in the middle of the room, you notice it's not attached to anything. And that was something I went, okay. And then it just kind of, the mythology kind of gets poured out a little bit. That is one other thing. I do wish they would have talked about the grabber and kind of why he doesn't believe in the phone. Because that's a point they bring up and they don't really ever kind of loop that back. That would have been nice, but I digress. The way he's able to talk to these kids and the way that they never say if they're in heaven or anything, but you can, very much imply that. But the way he talks about, the kids talk about how, that's not my name anymore, or I don't remember. It's very interesting. And there's actually probably there's an interesting conversation about where they are and what that means and how, our worlds are separated. It was really interesting the way they kind of leave you with those questions, but it was interesting the way the conversations he was having with these kids. And again, as I mentioned, the last 20 minutes is so incredibly kick-ass. But I don't know. I had so much fun with this movie, and it's one of those movies where while the gimmick is fun, the acting is just so amazing, and it's executed so well. So much of the camera work. There's a point where the grabber is sleeping, and I had mentioned earlier that Finney escapes, and the way that scene is shot in particular, and the way that the game, quote unquote, is introduced, and you find out kind of more about that from the other kids. It's just a fascinating watch, and it's a crowd pleaser like a motherfucker. This is something next year I will definitely be having people over to watch if they haven't seen it, because the Black Phone kicks so much ass. I know I mentioned a couple complaints about the film, just for some things I personally would have liked to have explained a little better, but when I enjoy a film this much, I can't give it anything but a fan-fucking-tastic. I adore this movie. I'm probably going to show this to my partner. I had so much fun with this. I cannot wait to watch this again. Yeah, Black Phone rules. You were right, Nick. See? But everyone, Black Phone, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, rate the show. It definitely helps us out. You can find us on SoundCloud, Apple, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneUp, and Samsung Podcasts at The Real Pineapple. Don't forget to follow yours truly on the Twitter at JHunterRealPineapple. That's REEL Pineapple. Don't forget to like both our pages on Facebook at The Real Pineapple and Real Pineapple Games. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok at BlackShazam775. And don't forget to follow me on Letterboxd at Black Shazam. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll have more Halloween reviews coming out this month, including a review for Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and the Scream franchise. But thank you so much for listening, everyone. Stay safe out there. Take care of each other. Tell someone you love them today. We all need to hear that a little more. But thanks again for the support. We'll talk to you soon.